evening and welcome to Beyond Room 313 Symposium with myself, Thomas Sheridan, and my co-host Jason Robo over there in the smoky North Pacific Northwest of the USA. Tonight actually here, we have an interesting young man, and how Joshua Brhel came into my focus was there was this guy called Lord of the Black Moon 666 was leaving these amazing comments on my YouTube video for a couple of years. And it was like really interesting stuff and really sounded very mature and someone who had a good knowledge and good grounding in all kinds of things, not just like the occult, but the esoteric, but also he seemed quite politically astute as well. He saw through the very cutting way of looking through the politically correct stuff and things like that. And then he friended me on social media, and lo and behold, is this like really young American guy that I did not expect to see. And he just really impressed me for two reasons. One, that he was so aware at such a young age. And secondly, that like I've basically given up on the next generation of people and wondered if we were going to have the tradition of magic and sorcery continuing on. Now, we did kind of get it with memes, so we're going to talk a lot about that tonight. So welcome to the show, Joshua. I'm delighted to have you here, and so is Jason. So listen, tell us about your growing up. Tell us about, like, your life has to be interesting if you are this knowledgeable at your age.
That's an understatement. So do you want me to start later or like as early as I can go?
Well, relevant to who you are now.
Okay. Oh, as early as I can go. So my upbringing was almost like it was almost like a parallel to a Greek epic, like, and I'm not even like, that's not even an exaggeration. Like this, like I've always had this uncanny feeling that I was put on this earth for like some sort of reason. Like my life has never been truly mundane, if you know what I mean. Like it's like the weirdest feeling, but it's like
it's like I've had that. It's that like that
yeah.
Joseph Campbell call to adventure.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, like, so I'm only 22. I turn 23 next year. So I still have a long way to go, hopefully, if I can make it that far. But my upbringing was basically a series of living nightmares, but I feel like all of that happened in order to shape me and make me grow as a person. Like my dad, for example, he's sort of like the archetypal horn god. He was wild, unruly. He was a forest person. He preferred living in the wilderness of like Alaska to living in civilization. He didn't fit in with normal society. And I mean, neither do I, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I can kind of pretend, I can kind of like put on a mask and be like, here I am. But like, so I get that wild nature from him. And then my mom is sort of like the reverse of that. She's very civilized, she's very cultured, but there's this sort of there's this like wildness in her too that paralleled my dad's outer wildness. And they actually like it was sort of like yin and yang. Like they were opposites. They paralleled each other, but they were also a perfect match in many ways. It's like one of the reasons that I found you was so like the first videos that I started watching that you made were your tarot videos. And I've always been interested in the tarot, like ever since I was like 15. And as I started to understand the tarot, specifically the major arcana and the archetypes that they represent, I started to realize that those archetypes are directly parallel to shit that actually happened to me in my real life, in my actual upbringing. So my dad is sort of like the devil card. He was an addict. He was wild. He was very adversarial. And he was very masculine. And then my mom is sort of like the high priestess. She's, what word do I use? She's reserved. She's civilized, but there's a sort of wildness in her too. And they kind of fit with each other, you know? And it's funny because my mom grew up Catholic, and she almost fits the Virgin Mary archetype perfectly. Like it's like uncanny. I mean, she had me when she was 19. She was fresh out of high school. And it's almost like these living archetypes were coming together to make me.
What kind of community did you grow up in?
I grew up in a small town, and well, it's not really that small anymore. It's kind of expanded a bit, but it's Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. And it's mostly Catholic, mostly Norwegian Catholics actually, because a lot of Norwegian Catholics immigrated to the Midwest in like the early 1900s, like late 1800s, because they were basically second-class citizens in Norway.
Yeah,
So
the Lutherans were very sectarian.
oh yeah, yeah, totally. So they came over here, and they adapted to the landscape very well, and they actually kind of got along with the Native Americans. They did cause the natives to get kind of pushed out a bit, but there was this weird sort of, and I don't know if it's because they were Catholic and so they were basically like pagans, basically, but they meshed well with the natives for some reason. Like they had a really good relationship with them. And they actually erected a shrine to the Virgin Mary on top of a hill. And it's the title that they gave it is sort of like it's sort of like an invocation to the river. It's like they were honoring the river, and the river, the Chippewa River, played a very important role in the origin of the town that I grew up in. Like it was basically because Chippewa Falls began as a lumber colony, and they used the river to float logs from one mill to another mill. And so there was almost this veneration for the landscape, this veneration for the river. And the natives in that area also had a veneration for the river. Like it was like the main part of their religious system. So it was like this weird, uncanny, like melding of the two cultures, the native Ojibwe and the Norwegian Catholics, and also French Canadian Catholics, because Wisconsin used to be owned by the French. Yeah. So and that's why we've got a lot of names like we got a lot of names, like a lot of city names that are like a weird mix of French and native, like Manitowoc and stuff like that. Right. Or yeah, it's
yeah. So that's where your interest in like folk Catholicism and stuff came from.
Yeah, because I basically grew up in like a folk Catholic environment. It was very nature centered, like extremely nature centered. They held midnight masses on Christmas, and actually, like I didn't even grow up referring to it as Christmas. We always just called it Yule. We called it the Yuletide season.
Yeah, well, that's Norwegian. Yeah.
Yeah. And
the midnight mass is a tremendously magical experience.
It's
even if you're not devout, there's something about it. It's incredible.
Yeah, no, I'm not Catholic anymore, and I enjoy observing the midnight masses. And they light candles, and they put the candles in these like hollowed out ice orbs that they made, and then they put them along the walkway, and it's like the most beautiful thing. But it's funny because the church that I grew up going to is like really scary on the outside. Like it looks like Auschwitz or some shit, but it's like, but when you go inside of it, it's like really peaceful and calming. It's probably the only church that I've ever felt comfortable being inside of.
I love that sense. Well, I haven't been in years, but I love that sensation of walking home after midnight mass, especially as a kid. I think it was the first kind of inkling I got growing up of what it was like for the pagans. Like it felt like a very, like, this wasn't Christianity, this was something else. And I think I used to feel like when I first found out about paganism when I was a young teen, it was like, oh, midnight mass. It felt like that was what I was experiencing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was very like, there was almost no emphasis on Jesus too, which I thought was funny because supposedly, Christianity is supposed to be all about Jesus, yet most of the focus in the specific Catholic diocese that I grew up in was on like Saint Christopher and obviously the Virgin Mary. They also incorporated some Celtic saints too, like Saint Brhel, which is interesting. I think it's because Chippewa Falls has a lot of Irish people in it too. So it was like this mixing of different ethnic groups.
Yeah.
But it created this very like magical environment, and it still is to this day, which I'm happy about. Actually, the people in Chippewa don't even vote for a mayor unless they're Catholic, which is kind of weird.
So the sectarianism has reversed now.
Yeah, no, because there are Protestants in Chippewa, but they're kind of like second-class citizens, and which is shitty. I don't think anyone should be.
Abrahamic still has to feed. Abrahamic still have to feed.
Yeah,
Yahweh still has to feed.
And actually, it's funny though. My grandma was telling me about the mayor that Chippewa had when she was growing up. He married a native Ojibwe woman, and she still practiced her indigenous faith. Well, actually, I think she was kind of dual faith. She was a Catholic, but she was also like indigenous. And they were married like in a Catholic marriage ritual, and they weren't even allowed to be buried next to each other. Like she was buried like in a completely separate cemetery from him. Like he was buried in a Catholic cemetery and she was buried somewhere else. Which when I heard about that, I was like, well, that's shitty, But
I tell you a funny story that happened to me years ago. I was flying somewhere in the US. I don't know, I was down south somewhere. And I was sitting next to this lady, and she was on her way up to the Dakotas to do missionary work to convert the Lakota people to Christianity.
mm-hmm.
I asked her, well, that's very interesting, thinking, well, what religion are they? And she goes, oh, most of them are Catholic.
Of course they are. Oh,
Christianity, Yeah. I thought that was really funny and ironic.
But it's funny because I say that my mom grew up Catholic, but she was never really into it that much. And she I forgot the name of the band, but they have a band shirt. Jason might know of it, but they've got I think it's like an 80s like punk band or something, and they've got a band shirt, and the theme is like a Madonna, but she's in like leather biker gear. And my mom was telling me the story about how when she was in grade school, she forgot that it was confession the next day, and that night, like the previous night, she had went to a concert with a couple of her friends, and she was wearing the band shirt with the Madonna and like a biker and like biker gear. And apparently the priest like thought it was hilarious and he wasn't even offended by it. So the priests that I grew up with were actually really chill. Like they weren't these like really uptight and stuffy priests that were like, you know, damnation and tarnation and you're gonna fucking burn in hell and you're gonna get sodomized and raped by demons and shit. They were actually really chill, you know.
That was my
So I,
that was my experience too.
yeah,
They were like really nice guys, and it's like when you grow up, you want to hate them, but you can't really because all they remember is like
yeah.
some
And
guy is really nice to you, you know.
it's just stupid though, because people like when they find out that I'm a pagan, they're like, oh, well, I mean, just because you had, you know, bad experiences with the church doesn't mean that, you know, doesn't mean you have to leave it completely. And I'm like, I didn't have any bad experiences with the church. I just naturally left it because I didn't feel it was for me. But that's like inconceivable to a lot of them. They're like, wait, so you just like naturally like came to the conclusion like by using critical thinking that you didn't want to be a part of it anymore? And it's like, yeah, what of it? You know, like.
So tell me, like, and right, you want to say something, Jason?
Oh no, I was gonna go in a different direction, but if you guys want to wrap this part up.
Yeah, I just want to know where I go in a different direction. I was just going to say, when was your first magical experience? Did you have one?
I had a lot of them. Like, so the first one that I can remember, the first distinct one that I can actually like put my finger on and say that was an actual like magical experience. I think I might have talked about it on my Facebook page last year. So I had this sort of out of body experience when I was in either third or fourth grade. And at the time, my bedroom was in the basement, and so it was like underground, which is kind of like perfect for that sort of thing, like creating that sort of experience, you know. And it was like really early in the morning. I forgot the exact time, but I remember I remember waking up, but I didn't actually wake up, if you know what I mean. So like I woke up, but my body was still like asleep.
I know that
But
feeling. Yep.
I sort of, so like I lifted my head off the pillow, or my soul did, or whatever. And I remember I heard this distinct growling noise coming from outside my bedroom door. And it's like, I didn't know what it was, but something was telling me that I had to like, I had to like run into my closet or something and hide from this thing. And so I did that, and in comes this like mutant humanoid crocodilian like thing, this like creature. And it came crawling. At first it was crawling into my bedroom. Then it stood up on its hind legs, and I could actually hear it like sniffing for me. And it was like something out of Lord of the Rings or some shit. Like, and which is funny because I grew up watching Lord of the Rings. Like that was my pagan epic growing up, was Lord of the Rings. Like it's funny, but like my dad actually let me stay home from school one day so we could just literally watch the whole trilogy like in the living room, because he was a shitty parent. But so this thing was like sniffing for me, you know, and I this happened so long ago, and I still remember it. Like that's how much of an impression it made on me. And then I woke up, and I was still in my bed. Like I actually woke up like for real that time, and I was in my bed, and I was like, what? Like I was a kid at the time, and I was like, what the hell just happened? Like, it was so weird. And I have a theory. So this was around the time that my little sister was born. And up until that point, and so she was born when I was 8. So we're 8 years apart. And that was, so like up until that point, I was used to being an only child. And then all of a sudden, I've got a little sister, you know? And in order to cope with the stress, I got into like Egyptology and stuff like that, and specifically like the religious side of Egyptology, like the demons and the gods and all that stuff. And I think that I may have accidentally conjured something, like subconsciously.
You probably did. Yeah.
Like a lot like how ghost hunters, like they kind of do that, you know, like because they go looking for something and then it appears to them. I think that's what happened to me. And I was very stressed. Like it was a really stressful time for everyone in the household, and so I was like very charged emotionally.
Yeah.
And so I think I had accidentally conjured something, but that was the earliest conscious magical experience. Now, when I was 17, I conjured a familiar spirit. I created this ritual from scratch. I took inspiration from like Goetia magic and European folk magic, and I kind of like meshed it together and like made it fit to how I thought it should be. I was like, it was kind of like chaos magic, and I created this whole elaborate ritual, and I had to like not masturbate for a whole lunar cycle, which when you're 17 years old is like, it's basically fucking torture. You know, it's, you know, I don't want to ever do that again.
Like, just imagine the charge that you built up not doing that.
It was probably like, you know, I actually created like I actually brought like a spirit into manifestation, and I know that it worked because my dad's girlfriend's daughter, who was like a toddler at the time, she saw it. She actually saw it in the kitchen one day, and she told me about it. She was like, "Oh, I saw this like werewolf creature in the kitchen," and I was like, "Oh, really?" Like, and that's how I envisioned my familiar spirit to be. It was sort of like a weird werewolf thing or whatever. And I performed the ritual in my bedroom, and my bedroom was connected to the kitchen, so it makes sense that it would appear to her in the kitchen. But that was one of the first times that I actively tried to make something happen, and the results were superb. Like, because I mean, when you're 17 going on 18, like you're very emotionally charged because you're transitioning to adulthood, and so it was like the perfect moment, the perfect time, and I made it happen.
Your nervous system would have been like a nuclear power plant.
It was, and especially because I was like I was going through some family drama, and that just made things way more like explosive. That, and I didn't jack off for a whole month.
I always tell people that, like, when they're going through a difficult time, very intense or something, is that they should really be building up that charge for using and for releasing at some point, like someone going through a divorce or someone grieving over the loss of a parent or something. There's the mourning, but it's also the charge that can be built up, that can be used to actually repair things. A lot of guys in prison do that. A lot of guys in prison who get into the occult do that kind of thing. They and also homeless as well. They will actually do that kind of stuff when they get back into normal life again, and it does work. It does work.
Joshua, I wanted to ask you, you said something so interesting before we got on air, but about homeless people, and you said, or I think Thomas might have mentioned about the jinn or entities within them. And there was, I don't know if you heard the 2 symposiums we did with Marnie about a month ago, where we talked about this topic too. And I just wanted to hear your experience on this. Is this something you discovered when you were a young kid or in your teenage years?
Yeah, so because of all the family drama that was happening, I ended up getting kicked out like the day I turned 18, which looking back on it, I'm glad they did it because it allowed me to grow and like mature as a person. But it also meant that I was basically on my own. Like I didn't, so I was like, it was basically going from a complete support system to no support system at all, and I had to claw my way to I had to actually like make a name for myself, So I moved to Alaska the spring before I turned 19. This was this was either April or May of 2018, and that was the year that and my birthday's in August, so I was turning 19 that year. And so that was my first experience actually living on the street, like not actually having a home, because up until then I was staying with my mom. And then I decided to go live with my dad, and he was basically living in a tent, like in the woods in Alaska. And it was almost like I was going back to like a primal primitive state, like I was basically living the same way that our hunter-gatherer ancestors would have lived, like out in nature in a tent,
Really?
having to scavenge and and do all that stuff. And it actually had a really positive impact on me. And a lot of people, and it's not like I'm not saying, oh, I want people to be homeless, as soon as they graduate, as soon as they get out of high school, but I think one of the issues that we have today is that people are very sheltered. They're coddled even well into their fucking 20s. And I live in a college town, and I like the people. I don't I'm the same age as these people, and I don't have any, like, I feel like I'm in my 40s and I'm 22. Like it's so weird. And so I had an experience that a lot of people today don't have. And it allowed me to see the world in a different way from many modern people. And it also allowed me to interact with people who are very obviously not fully human, if you know what I mean. So as you know, we've got a huge homeless problem here in the US. And we've got all these people saying, oh, well, let's put them into therapy and get them off drugs and stuff. The problem with that is that they don't want to get better. They don't want the therapy. They don't want to get off the drugs because it's not them. Like, there's no human soul inside. It's something inhuman that's causing them to act that way. And I started to realize this very, like, at first I thought they were just crazy. Like, I thought they were just normal people, but they got hooked on drugs and then they were crazy. But then I started to realize that, like, because they've got this almost like hive mind complex. Like, they huddle together in like one area, and they almost start to like act identically. Like, they're different people, but there's this weird, it's almost like they're in a matrix type system.
Like Skid Row beside the Cecil Hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like that. And you know how the jinn it's almost like they're the whatever is possessing them is it's forming. And this is why I don't believe that Skid Row is ever going to get better, at least not by natural means, because these aren't human beings that we're talking about. These are jinn that are living inside of meat suits, basically, and they are forming their own jinn community, so to speak.
And they're attracted to areas. They're attracted to areas that definitely had something to draw them there.
Some evil, negative energy about it. Yeah.
If something happened in Skid Row, that
they're attracted. They're attracted to places like the Salvation Army, because the Salvation Army not only does it enable them, but it also, like, there's this weird. Anyone who's ever been inside of a Salvation Army knows that there's this weird, unsettling feeling about it. And I did a little bit of research into the guy that like created the Salvation Army, and he was a total psycho. Yeah. He didn't even want to get people off the street. He basically wanted to create like a class of serfs that just lived off of handouts, you know. There's something evil about it. There's something like uncanny.
Well, no, we had Marnie on. I was talking about that, Jason, the Charing Cross station in London. Mm-hmm. That, well, Crowley called that the magical gateway to London, and he always approached the city from that station. And there's underneath the station building are catacombs, and the most, I don't know what it's like now these days, but it was the most depraved homeless. I mean, real down and out. It's like you see in Skid Row in LA.
Yeah.
And they were not human. You could look at them emerging from the catacombs with a big overcoat. In the middle of summer, they have a big
like vampires
on them. Yeah, and
like ghouls. They're like something out of Dracula's, out of Bram Stoker's like gothic horror. Not they're like, you know, they live in dark, damp crypts, and then they come out at night and they scare the shit out of people, and they look gaunt and they're like undead and shit. Like
and they never change. And a lot of those places were execution grounds in the past and things like that. You know, like there was did you see that film? Like I did an addendum on the Dublin occult thing, and I went down a neighborhood like that, and there was all battles and wars fought in that neighborhood, and sure enough, it's all fellas on the street, like you know, their heads on crack and stoned, and like in really bad way, and real like hardcore down and outs. Well, it was the battles in the past and all the debt that has brought them in there. I'm convinced of it.
Yeah.
Did you ever have any one-on-one interactions with them where one of the jinn or one of these entities communicated with you and harassed you or pushed you around at all? Or have you been able to stay clear of them?
Well, if you count all of the weirdos that have tried to like convert me to like Baptist Christianity or whatever, because there's a lot of people like that at the Salvation Army who are homeless, and they go around saying, "Be gone, you know, be gone, Lucy, be gone, Lightbringer," and I'm like, wait a minute, so like you want to be surrounded by darkness, you know? Like, and there's some of the rudest people too, like your face, and they'll be like, "Hey, you hear about the good news?" And you're like, and they're like, "Oh, Jesus has come to save you," and I'm like, no. You can tell that they're not all there, you know.
Yeah.
But one thing I will, but a few months ago I saw an actual jinn. Like I didn't just someone possessed by a jinn. I saw an actual jinn. I saw like a literal ball of plasma. it was just after I moved into my new apartment, like a couple of weeks afterward, I think. And I was walking home at like 2 in the morning from the library downtown, and saw this ball of plasma floating just above the tree line. And it was kind of, it was kind of just like doing its own thing, you know. It was just kind of like moving just above the tree line, and it was like moving. It was moving like towards the south or whatever, like towards the south of the city. And like I didn't really, you know, it was just doing its own thing. Like I'm not gonna mess with something if it's not, you know, if it's not being a pest or whatever. I almost got the sense that it was like lost or something, or was looking for someone or something, or it was trying to hide. But we do have exchange students here at the university from Palestine. I actually know one of them, so I'm wondering if maybe that's why we've had this like influx of inactivity, because
It may have been living in an old factory or a mine or an old abandoned house, and then suddenly it's been knocked down or something. That's
maybe.
when
Yeah,
you see them in transit, that's what's going on. They're literally where
yeah,
they're staying has been not accessible to them anymore.
there has been a lot of construction going on here, and a lot of older buildings have been so I think that's probably why.
Yeah, that's usually when you see them. Their home has been disturbed. They basically live in mines and old factories and old hospitals and things like that. So let's get on to something that you're absolutely brilliant at: meme magic. And what drew you to meme magic?
I like being an edgelord, and I like pissing people off.
Good.
And that's kind of the simple answer. But so I mean, from a very early age, I recognized the power of being being a pest, and like, you know, being adversarial, but like not in like an evil way, you know, but just like kind of like a play. Um,
Like the
and
jester.
one of yeah, sort of like a Loki archetype. And like ever since I was young, I recognized that as like one of the reasons why I get into like jousts with people in the Asatru community is that they view Loki in like this very satanic, like they've almost got this like Lutheran like devil view of Loki, and like I've always had a much more nuanced interpretation of him. I mean, yes, he's chaotic. Yes, he's, you know, not all there potentially, but he plays an extremely important role in the sagas. I mean, almost everything that happens in the sagas is because he does something, and then it causes the other gods to have to fix whatever he did. So in a way, he almost keeps the other gods from becoming decadent and complacent, because he always keeps them on their toes, because they're always reacting to shit that he does.
Yeah, he's an evolutionary force.
Yeah, exactly. And I wouldn't recommend that people worship him directly, but he is a very important archetypal force that you should utilize in your life in small doses, because he can be useful. And I sort of, so at anyone who's familiar with the Elder Scrolls franchise knows of a term called mantling. It's a video game franchise. So mantling is basically you are sort of mimicking or imitating a specific deity and almost becoming that deity in a way. That's kind of what I do with Loki. Like I sort of become him in a way, but not really. It's sort of like it's sort of like an act, like Shakespearean. I mean, anyone who knows me knows that my persona online is not how I actually am in real life. I'm trying to cause mischief in order to create positive change in the real world. And the internet is perfect for that.
Oh yeah.
Because the internet is
I was doing that before you were born on
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, not only is it fun, but it also has a positive impact on the real world.
Oh, big time. Used to be on a group, an Irish group 25 years ago that was full of like the IRA guys and UVF guys, sectarian stuff, all hating each other, all promising to assassinate each other. And I started doing the same thing by taking the piss out of both of them. And within no time, they were all waiting to see what the latest thing was. I created a third force, which was an army of teddy bears that was going to defeat the IRA and defeat the loyalists. And it became like a fantastic running joke, you know? And
like,
it worked.
I've never understood people that take life so seriously, if you know what I mean. Like my goal is to try and get people to relax. I want people to just relax and have a good time, because I've noticed that the people who are able to relax and have a good time, even under extreme amounts of stress, have a much healthier psychology.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
And I've been like this ever since I was little. Like I've had a very laid back view. Like I don't give a shit, you know. And I mean, we live in an era where everyone is very uptight. Everyone is very like emotional, and they take their emotions very seriously because they're always right. And you know, and they create these like cults and these like hateful communities, like on Twitter and stuff like that. And then they just attack people. That's all they do. They just attack people. And they attack people because the people that they are attacking are having a good time, and they don't know how to have a good time. And so they're unhappy, they're losers, and I don't have the patience for people like that. I want people to have a good time. I want people to enjoy life, because like my personal opinion is that life is meant to be enjoyed to the fullest. People who just go around being angry all the time and being bitter and being grouches, like what kind of a life is that? Like what kind of a quality of life is that? You know, like just like chill out.
Yeah.
You know, and so I don't know if you remember, but I made that post in the in like the group chat on MeWe, saying about like I went down to Florida a few weeks ago, and I'm really glad that I was able to do that, because I just for a whole week I was able to kind of relax and collect myself, and that was a spiritual experience. Like that was so nice.
Yeah.
I just sat in I just laid back and floated in the Gulf of Mexico and let the sun hit my face, and it was like really nice. And I mean, I understand that people can't take like, you know, week trips to, you know, Florida, you know, like not everyone can do that, but I want people to just find something that they enjoy and allow themselves to chill. Because I think like even in the alternative community, people have been like I've been noticing that people have been really like agitated because of all the lockdowns and stuff. And I just want people to relax. Like I want people to relax and have a good time, because the people who are behind the lockdowns and the needlecraft, they don't want you to have a good time. They want you to be angry. They want you to be pissed off. So if you're able to have a good time, they don't have power over you.
Yeah.
You know?
It's very Orwellian. I mean, one of the great privileges of my life was to witness the whole 2016 Fortran Memetics Keck war against the Clinton Foundation.
Yeah.
Basically, a bunch of nobodies destroyed the Clinton Foundation.
Yeah.
Using memes, and were very aware that it was chaos magic when they were working.
Do you know?
Well, what was great about that is they actually probably saved the world from a nuclear war, because
Oh yeah, definitely.
to go to war.
Because she's the blood queen.
She is the blood.
She's the archetypal. She's like the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland, or like the Black Queen from Snow White or whatever, you know, like
Countess Batroy, you know.
Yeah, the Countess Bathory. Yeah, she's selfish and
poisonous.
She wants to see the world burn. Yep. Because she doesn't value life.
But she was destroyed by it. Always showed me that humans will survive, by a bunch of guys, incredibly funny memes. Basically destroyed her.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm waiting for Queen Elizabeth to die so I can start making memes about it. I've already got some ideas.
No, so I know Daniel Verite, I don't remember her, but she was the thing that she was channeling the ghost in Queen Elizabeth's pussy. That was years ago, like about 8 or 9 years. It was fucking hilarious. But she was so old, her vagina was haunted, and she was channeling the ghost from it.
I think Alex Jones is the ultimate shitlord. You know, I don't even think that he's that serious. I don't think he actually believes that that she like drinks the blood of aborted fetuses and stuff like that. I think
Italian understands.
He makes jokes about.
Yeah,
he makes jokes about it, and I mean, like as weird as he can be, he did play a huge role in that Keck thing.
Yeah.
Because he created a lot of memes, and he is a meme. He's like a living meme, you know.
Even when he does
that's why they deplatformed
rages, those like Eric Cartman type rages.
Yeah,
he's in control. He knows exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I gave him shit over that whole like school shooting thing, and he was denying that it even happened. And like I think when it comes to stuff like that, it's okay to criticize him, but I like what he does actually.
Yeah, that was his only
on a certain level.
His only major fuck up was that, because he was on Joe Rogan recently, and Joe Rogan literally read out a list of things that he nailed right long before. And it was really impressive, really impressive.
I mean, he basically is like a living Eric. I mean, South Park is one of the funniest shows ever created, and it's predicted like so many things. Like, it's weird.
Yeah.
And do you know about the Illuminati card game?
Yeah, years ago about that.
So there's a card. I don't know. So there's a card in that game called the Reign of Frog. The Frog God. It's called the Frog God.
Yeah.
And that inspired Keck. And that game was made like so many decades ago, and like
early 90s,
yeah, like it
and it's still unfolding. It has like you know, virus, global pandemic, and
Yeah, global pandemic,
or even
reign of
like,
frogs.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember you reading about that years ago on 40 Times when it first started to come true, and it's chaos magic, isn't it? It's like they've written a book of kind of intention in a game, and it's just like The Simpsons is full of chaos magic, and
Yeah.
South Park, the old Simpsons. So listen, do you have what plans do you have for the future? Are you like, I don't know what the word is, legitimizing yourself by like maybe writing a book or making films or something like that?
I'm thinking about writing a book about the occult and pop culture, because I don't think that there's enough media on that. And I think it's funny because when the average person hears the word occult, they think of like a cult of like rogue like freaks like walking around in like ancient times like chanting and stuff like that. And I can pull up a music video by like Cardi B and see like 50 different esoteric messages in it and whatever. And I think it'd be educational. I think it'd be fun just to.
But it'd also be important because to date all that stuff is done by Christians. So it'd be
Yeah,
great.
no, like all of this stuff is done by truthers, and truthers are fucking retarded, and they didn't get sex when they were in high school, and their parents were probably like siblings or some shit, and so they've got like bongs stuck up their assholes and stuff like that, and that's how they got that's how they got the smoke getting blown up their assholes. So I spent 5 hours the other night roasting the shit out of Shani for Christ's husband, because he looks like something that crawled out of the CIA Illuminati laboratory, and they just haven't figured out that he escaped. So I have to call up the CIA and tell them that he escaped because he's, you know. But I was like roasting him in a private DM with Tina the other night, and because she reintroduced me to Shani for Christ, because I found her when I was in high school, and I thought she was crazy then, and she kind of reintroduced me to Shani for Christ, because I think I might have blocked out the memory. Like that's how traumatic it was. And she wants to kill her own kids, and she thinks that the end of the world is gonna happen like any day now, or so I don't know. But yeah, no. So
I'd like to see that. I think it's really good that someone is not like Jay Dwyer does okay working it, and he's a nice guy and everything. I met him.
Yeah, and I mean like
he's Christian though. He's Christian, and he's still coming
like,
from that angle. It'd be good to see the two of you kind of like have a debate on that. That'd be kind of on a certain like music video or something. That'd be really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I see so many awful things said about. I mean, say what you want about Madonna as a person. She is one of the greatest artists of the modern era.
You don't have to convince me of that.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying it for the people watching this. Like her video, Frozen, is like gorgeous, and I see so many people in the comment section being like, she's a witch. She has sex with the devil.
Yeah.
What I mean, of course she doesn't. He's gay. I have sex with him.
Yeah.
And she sacrifices babies and all this shit. And I'm like, what the fuck are you people smoking? And can I please have some of it? So.
And if you bring in something like the Morrigan or the obvious thing, the Morrigan, the Valkyrie, they're like,
she's the Morrigan, she's the Valkyrie, she's Hecate, she's all of that stuff. And it's funny because she didn't even like that music video apparently, because she thought that the director made her look too spooky, and I was like,
no way, it looked amazing. Even like the Like a Prayer video, the symbolism is phenomenal in that.
Yeah.
A folk act, the Black Madonna and everything. Talk about folkism, folk Catholicism.
And like in recent months, I've been kind of like I've been restraining myself. Like I haven't been going at Catholics as much, because like I've actually been kind of defensive of Catholics, like because um I've noticed that they've been getting a lot of shit from people in like the Satire community, like, oh, Catholics, oh, because they're all, Lutherans and shit. And I'm like, just like I don't like Christianity as a religion, but I at the same time I don't think that all of this like Catholic hate is healthy. Like I think it's just divisive, and it just like it doesn't do anything. Like it doesn't help anything. It just makes things worse, because you're basically splitting people apart based on religion, and we should be coming together, because we all have a common enemy, and that's globalism. That's
Yeah.
the Blood Queen, or whatever her name is.
Yeah, no, I'm having some success with that here. I've got a lot of Irish, like sort of like anti-globalist types that kill their kind of Catholic Christian thing.
Yeah.
See the pagans as being cool, So
Yeah.
I've had a lot of success with that lately, and it depends on how you talk to people. It depends on how you talk to them. And I think, like you said, humor is a great one for doing it. Humor is really, really important.
Humor brings people together.
Yeah.
Because most of the people in the alternative community are still Christian. But when I post a funny meme, even if they know that I'm a pagan, when I post a funny meme about like, Joe Biden or whoever, him falling asleep on the Israeli prime minister, because that actually happened. They all laugh along with me, and I want to stop all of this like divisiveness. Like I want everyone to be able to come together, and humor is a great way to do that. Even if sometimes I come across as an asshole or an edgelord, because I make jokes about kids getting burned alive in school buses. Like humor is,
well, dark humor is very important.
Yeah.
Gallows humor is very important.
I'm not actually like that. I'm trying to explain this.
No, but there's so many NPCs out there that don't actually have that. They've had a kind of a humor bypass. Who you were saying that your dad reminds you of the devil, and your mother reminds you of the high priestess. You remind me of the fool in the top deck. That one with the you've got that. So that's a kind of a Loki thing as well.
Yeah.
That's kind of archetype. That's your physical look.
And I want people, like I want more people to do this. I want people to not just worship the gods, but also try to embody them physically. Because I've noticed that that's a very like you could have some people embody Thor, you could have some people embody Tyr, Freya. I think Tina Kemp could embody Freya perfectly, because she's kind of witchy and cool like that. And I like, because I think just worshiping, because I mean people in ancient Greece did this. They didn't just worship the gods, they also sort of play acted. They embodied them as sort of like living divinities. And that's one of the things that the early Christians had a problem with, because they wanted to take divinity away from humanity and give it to some obscure force that may or may not even exist.
Yeah, Madonna, the singer, again, she's the queen of that.
Yeah,
she totally understands the idea of drawing down the archetype into the.
This is one of the reasons why I've been putting such an emphasis on pop culture, because I think pop culture, I mean, there are some yes, I agree, it's gotten very sexualized and violent, but it like it does play an important role in society. And this is one of the reasons why I love Camille Paglia so much, because she appreciates pop culture. She appreciates the arts, not just ancient classical art, but also modern art. And I see people specifically like in the Satira community being like, oh, I love ancient nude statues and stuff like that. And then in the next breath, they'll start complaining about a Megan Thee Stallion music video because it's like, you know, basically like mild pornography. And I'm like, wait a minute, you like one piece of pornography, but not another one? Like,
yeah,
you know, it's like, just, you know, like, make up your mind. Like, and I really like Camille Paglia because she is a grounded, she's one of like the last sane intellectuals, you know, like she's actually like sane and grounded, and she's not psychotic, and
yeah, and makes her point.
And she also doesn't she doesn't like gay bash or anything like that. Like she lists all of the positive qualities of every type of person, and she doesn't try to pit people against each other. And she points out the fact that every type of person has contributed something to society throughout all of human history. And a lot of people today try to downplay certain aspects of society for their own personal, political, or social goals.
So what's the best place to find you? Like Instagram, like for the memes?
Instagram, MeWe. I'm not on Facebook anymore because Facebook is run by a lizard person.
You're on MeWe, but what I'll do is I'll put your your Instagram address down the bottom, because that's where those all your best memes are anyway.
Yeah,
that, you know, that the people want to find Josh's memes, and they are
so
often brilliant.
I renamed my Insta to Breath of Kine as an homage to Skyrim. So all you gotta do is type in like Breath of Kine, and you'll find me on there. And I got my profile pic. You know, y'all know.
I'll send the link to Jason, and he can put it at the bottom of the screen. Jason, do you have anything to say to Joshua before we wrap this up? We got another show coming afterwards.
Well, other than Joshua, I think you've got something really great going on here, and I wish you the absolute best going forward.
And actually, I'm planning on moving to Florida within the next couple of years too, because Wisconsin's getting kind of dull, and I'm sick of the attitude that people got up here, because they're kind of complacent and they don't really care if people, like, you know, they don't really care if the government abuses them and beats them and tells them that they're trash or whatever. And
that's a shame. So the heavy metal and beer and pizza culture is gone.
Huh?
The heavy metal and beer pizza culture up there is gone.
Well, it depends on what part of Wisconsin you're talking about, but unfortunately most of Wisconsin has become like normified. And it used to be the exact opposite. Wisconsin used to be one of the coolest states. I mean, we got all sorts of cool like paranormal shit. We got like wolfmen and dogmen, and there's we've got the grave of Ed Gein that my mom went down to visit recently because she's into that shit.
Yeah, I saw one of those sites, and that there's a road down there. It's a famous road that has all paranormal stuff all along it.
Grave Road.
Yeah, I'd love to go
there. That's actually just north of where I grew up. I actually went there a few years ago with my friends on Halloween night, and it was like the spookiest thing. And I was being a dipshit, and I started like, you know, I tried to like scream and see if I could like get anything to attack me or whatever, and they were all pissed off and they wanted me to go back in the car.
Yeah.
I was being an ass.
That's part of life.
What part of Florida are you moving to?
So I was thinking the Fort Myers area, because it's right on the Gulf of Mexico. It's like southwest Florida, and it's like really nice.
Is that south of Tampa Bay?
Yeah, it's it's south of Tampa Bay and like just west of Miami. Like Miami is on the other side of Florida, from where Fort Myers is. And that's where I went down because that's where my friend lives, and it was just really nice. I want to change things up a bit because I'm sick and tired of living in the same state.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for coming on the show, Joshua.
Yeah.
And we'll have you back another time. And I want to see how this thing with the book of pop culture develops. Thanks, Jason, for looking after the show. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And we'll be back again on the Symposium 313. And look after yourselves, and many more interesting people like Joshua and other people coming in to the show in the future. So thank you very much, and look after yourselves.